with the frenzy of an old snake shedding its skin. Whoa. The speckled road, scored with ruts, smelling of mold, twisted on itself and re-entered the forest, where the dashing leaves thicken and folk stories begin. Sunset would threaten us as we climbed closer to her house, up the asphalt hill road, whose yam vines wrangled over gutters with the dark reek of moss, the shutters closing with the eyelids of that mimosa, called Ty Marie, then loosened as paper lanterns. Lamplight glowed through the ribs, house after house. There was her own lamp at the black twist of the path. There's childhood, and there's childhood aftermath. She began to remember at the minute of the fireflies. Okay, so I would just like to point out the fact that I just pronounced minute as minute. I promise I'm a senior in high school, and I promise I'm supposed to be in this class, so just ignore that. Okay, bye. To the sound of the pipe water banging in kerosene tins. Stories she told to my brother and myself. Her leaves were the libraries of the Caribbean, the luck that was ours, those fragrant origins. Her head was magnificent, Sidone. In the gully of her voice, shadows stood up and walked. Her voice travels my shelves. She was the lamplight in the stare of two mesmerized boys, still joined in one shadow, indivisible twins. Okay, so starting off with the title, this Roman numeral actually is 14, so we're not quite sure what that means yet. It could be maybe his age when he was going through this. It's up in the air, we don't know. Okay, so starting off, the author says, with the frenzy of an old snake shedding its skin. So I said that had a kind of a, like, starting over renewal feeling to it, like when a snake shed its skin, it's like new, having a new life. So I did that, and it's also good. It's also naturalistic imagery, along with the speckled road, scored with ruts, smelling of mold, twisted on itself, and re-entered the forest, where the dasheen leaves thicken and folk stories begin. So that just has a lot of naturalistic imagery that the author uses to kind of have his audience know where he is and get like a feeling of where these stories were taking place. Next he says, the sunset would threaten us as we climbed over to our house up the asphalt hill road, whose yam vines wrangled over gutters with the dark reek of moss, the shutters closing like the eyelids of the mimosa, called Tea Marie, then lucent as paper lanterns. Lamplight glowed through the ribs, house after house. There was her own lamp at the back twist of the path. Okay, I'll stop there. So again, there's more naturalistic imagery with the yam vines wrangled over the gutters, the dark reek of moss, and the shutters closing like the eyelids of the mimosa. That's also a simile. I also said that the nighttime, normally it's a time for like peace and like relaxation, but in this case, that's where all the excitement begins. So, yeah, because that's when they would hear all the stories. And then her own lamplight at the back twist of the path. I said that that's guiding them, and it also juxtaposing the darkness. So they talk about like fighting the sunset and like just to race over to her house to hear the stories, but their path is guided through all of these lamps, so they're able to see. Then he goes on to say, there's childhood and there's childhood aftermath. She began to remember at the minute of the firefly. So I literally did it again. Yeah, I just wanted to point that out. Just, you can roast me if you want. To the sound of pipe water banging, kerosene tins, stories she told to my brother and myself. Again, that's just more imagery of kind of the feeling that he got when the old woman would start telling stories. He goes on to say her leaves were the libraries of the Caribbean. That's a metaphor. The luck that was ours, those fragrant origins. Her head was magnificent, Sidone. In the gully of her voice, shadows stood up and walked her. Her voice travels my shelf. She was the lamplight and the stare of two mesmerized boys, still joined in one shadow, indivisible twins. So here he uses personification when he says shadows stood up and walked, because obviously that cannot happen. So what he's using with personification, kind of like how the stories came alive to him at night, and how he like felt like he was a part of them, and just how much he enjoyed the stories. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna use Soapstone to analyze this poem. So the speaker is Derek Walcott. I'm assuming he's from the Caribbean, because he's talking, or it says he's a Caribbean writer, so I guess my assumption would be correct. Anyway, so the voice that is speaking is Derek, talking about him and his brother's experience going to visit this elderly woman that tells them stories. The occasion was took place in Derek's childhood, and specifically the nights that him and his